really quick message before I get off of here. Of course, I get a lot of people that hit me up, that have trouble with healing and moving on from situations, toxic situations that they want to move on from, right? They made up their mind, they want to leave, whatever, and they have trouble doing it. So number one I want to talk about is staying in the pain, okay? Staying in the pain will not help you heal. I know most of you know that, but a lot of us, we stay in situations expecting those situations to change. Like if you know what it is, if somebody showed you who they are over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, like you know what it is. It's not them no more. It's you. And what I mean by that is that it's you because you're choosing to accept that when somebody has shown you who they are. And, I talk about it a lot about not falling in love with potential. I talk about it a lot when you have to do what's best for yourself, best for your peace, best for your life. It's not your fault that someone gave you pain, but it is your responsibility. Your healing is your responsibility, right? The pain they gave you is not your fault, but your healing is your responsibility. Okay, so realize that. It's like if I'm, standing in an environment that's sick and I'm standing in that environment, how can I ever expect it to heal when I'm standing in an environment that is sick? You cannot heal yourself standing in a sick environment. Realize that, all right? So remove yourself from the pain. You can't keep touching the wound expecting the wound to heal. If you keep touching the wound, guess what? That wound will reopen and that wound will end up being bad in your life, all right? So number one, you will never heal by staying in the pain. You guys know that. It's common sense, but I want you guys to get that and understand that. Number two, you will not heal looking for happiness in the same place that you lost it. Okay. Yes, there is times when people change. There is times when things get better. There is like people can change. People can, do all of that. I believe in that. I believe in progression. I believe in change. But there's a point when a person is choosing to treat you a certain type of way and you're choosing to accept it. Right. And what we do is we're expecting somebody to be something that they're not. We want somebody to be in our life something that they're not willing to be, something that they're not working to become. They're not wanting to change. We want somebody to change that's not willing to change. You got to realize that you will never change a person. Okay, and I tell you that with me. I can't change your life. People say, "Oh, Trent, you changed my life." No, I didn't. Right? I can influence change. I can pray for your change, but only you can make the change. And it goes with other people. You can't change people. You can change who you are. There's no amount of perfect. You can live the most perfect life for them. If somebody's committed to not loving you, if somebody's committed to not being loyal to you, if somebody's committed to not being real to you, they're not going to be it. That's them. No matter how much perfection you give, it will never be enough for a person, right? That doesn't really, truly love you like that. And that's just facts. And that's not just relationships. That's friendships. That's a lot of things you need to understand. A lot of times we lose ourselves trying to please someone else, right? We lose ourselves trying to make somebody become who we want them to be. They have to want to become that person, right? They have to work towards their change. They have to want to get better. They have to want it. You can want it for them, but your want will not create their change. All right. Like I said, you can pray for it and prayer works. You can do a lot of things. And I'm not saying that those things don't work, but at the end of the day, if somebody wants to change, if you want somebody to change, it doesn't mean nothing if you want it, if they don't want it. I hope you guys get that because that's facts. All right. Number three. All right. And this is a big one, man. Listen, you will never heal from a situation by trying to prove you're over the situation. Stop trying to prove that you're over them. All right. Like I see it all the time. It's like we go in this social media battle, right? We want to show people, like everybody's sending me emails right now. We want to show people or a person or an ex, whatever it may be, or a friend that we're over them, right? We're trying to prove to them that we're over them. One of the things that I always say is that you should never be trying to move on from them. And people look at me crazy like, what are you talking about, Trent? Because if your moving on consists of you focusing on them, guess what? You're focusing on them. And what I always teach you guys, what you focus on is what you will feel. Stop focusing on moving on from them and start focusing on what you deserve. Stop focusing on moving on from them and start focusing on loving yourself. Stop focusing on moving on from them and start focusing on living your best life. All right? Because stop making your healing about them. Your healing is not about them. And that's facts. Your healing is about you. And as long as you make it about them, as long as you checking up on them all the time, as long as you snooping out, as long as you like trying to get a new relationship, which I'm gonna talk about in a minute, because they got a relationship, you're always trying to compete and you trying to show that you happy. Like all of these things don't mean nothing if you're not healing. You can sit here in front for the gram, you can sit here in front for Facebook, but you know what's real. Period. So stop trying to prove to them that you're over them. Who cares? Right? Who cares? Prove it to yourself. Stop trying to prove it to people. Stop trying to prove it to your mama. Stop trying to prove it to your friends. Stop trying to prove it to them. Prove it to yourself. The only way you're going to prove it to yourself is if you work on your healing. Understand this. Healing is not an overnight process. It's an overtime process. Healing sometimes is a lifelong process. And that's why I always say facts over feelings. There's going to be a point where you feel like you're not healing. But as long as you keep moving forward, as long as you're focused on being the best you, as long as you're focused on progressing your life, one thing that I always tell people when they ask me, I say, you know what? The one thing that you can do, that you can control, is focus on being the best you, right? And when you show yourself that you can not only survive without that situation, but you can thrive, you can become better, you can become the best you can still grow, you can still progress without that situation, that's the confidence you need to move on with your life. All right, that's facts. Number four. This is a big one. All right, 5 things that won't help you heal. Number 4, holding hate for them in your heart. Okay? Holding hate for them in your heart. And that's big. And I know it takes time to forgive people, but I'll tell you right now, as simple as this. If you don't forgive them, they will control the rest of your life. There's a lot of people that become the same thing that they hated, right? They become a person that they're not. They don't want to trust nobody. They become cold-hearted, all because of a person or a situation that happened. And, you know, it's life. It's happened to all of us. It's even happened to me at a point in my life. But I realized that I was making people pay for mistakes they didn't make, right? I was not trusting people that should have been trusted because of somebody did me wrong in my past. And as long as you hold that hate in your heart for them, they will control your life. And one of the worst ways to live your life, right, is living your life being controlled by somebody who's no longer a part of your life. And a lot of people are doing that. You become bitter. You become angry. They didn't move on with their life. They live in their life. And you sitting there still making other people pay for mistakes they didn't make. Okay, so make sure you give forgiveness. And people ask, well, how do I do that? It's hard. Well, forgiveness is hard. But a few tips that have helped me give forgiveness is, one, if you're a believer, you've been forgiven at some point in your life, right? God forgives you daily, I'm sure. You've asked for forgiveness from other people. I'm sure you've done some wrong in your life. Maybe not to the level that they done you, but you've done some wrong, right? So that's number 1, right? You've been forgiven. Understand that. Number 2 is understanding this is that maybe they're hurt. Maybe they've been hurt in their past. Maybe they didn't have a father in their life. Maybe they didn't have a example of what a relationship would look like. It's not making an excuse for them, but it's understanding that they never had an example, right? Maybe they don't even know what love is. They don't know what loyalty is. They don't know what trust is. They might talk about it, but they don't know what it is. They never seen it. And so they're trying to figure this thing out. Does it make it right? No, but you understand it more, right? You put yourself in their shoes. It helps you forgive. And then the third thing is simply what I just told you guys. Like without forgiveness, you can move on from the person, but you'll never move on from the pain. That's facts. That's why you have people that, like I said, be 20 years later, they still are being affected by a person in their past, right? Don't let your future be controlled by your past. And that's a big thing. I ask myself that all the time when I don't want to forgive people, because there's times where I'll be real with you. I'll be like, I'm not forgiving that person. But I ask myself, do you want your future controlled by this person? They control so much of your life. They cause so much pain and hurt in your life. Why would you give them a pass to keep controlling your life, right? Let it go. Forgive them. Wish them the best. All right. Last but not least, I already kind of talked about this. The 5th thing that won't help you heal is getting in a new relationship when you haven't healed from your previous one. Like that happens far too often, right? We think whether it's a competition, whether we want to show them that we're over them, back to number 3, or whether we're trying to get a Band-Aid to put over our wound, to put over our hurt. And a lot of people, we get Band-Aid relationships, which means is that we're trying to just forget about the past relationship. We're trying to think that they can heal us. So they give us what we want. They give us the medicine that we need for the time, but it's temporary. And usually what happens is we try to build we try to build a relationship with broken pieces. And when you have broken pieces in your relationship, yeah, at first, when the hype is there, it might not show. When the excitement is there, it might not show. But when it rubs off, it will show. That's why you have people who get divorced and get married, then get divorced again, then get married and get divorced again. And they just keep this cycle because they haven't learned how to be by themselves. They haven't learned how to love themselves. They haven't learned how to heal, right? They haven't done none of that. And they get into a new relationship. And sometimes it works. Hey, sometimes it does work. I've seen it happen with people. They get a new relationship and it worked. But I'm just saying, for the majority, you're not healing. You're not, right? It's a false sense of healing, right? You never dealt with the issues that happened. You just hopped into a new relationship. And so, yeah, I think those are 5 things, man, that won't help you heal. And I think those are 5 things that repeat the cycle of hurt, that keep you in that hurt phase in your life. And I'm going to be honest with you. Healing is a sucky process. It's hard. Learning how to love yourself by being by yourself is hard. Being single is hard. Having voids in your life that are controlling your life is hard. And in these voids, loneliness is a void that controls a lot of people. And what they do is they want to get rid of that void. So they do anything. They settle for anything that doesn't make them lonely. Anything that looks like it, seems like the real thing, seems like it could be good, they take it because they don't want to be alone. They don't like the feeling of loneliness, right? And so I've learned this. Is the quote that I've told you guys like 5 years ago. And it really helped my life and appeared in my life. I say sometimes it takes being perfectly lonely just so God can show you what being perfectly loved feels like. And I learned how to, I always tell myself, of course, if I lost people in my life, it'll hurt, it'll suck. I don't want to lose anybody. But if I did, I know that even though I would be hurt, I would be good because I spent so much time in my life alone, right? I figured out who I am. I built the foundation. I built my faith at that point. I grew closer to God. I understood who I was as a person. I love that person. I love myself, not in an arrogant way, in just a real way. And so that helped complete me as a person. So now I'm complete. Now I can search, or not even search, because I feel like you shouldn't have to search for a relationship. I feel like relationships come. And now I can be the man I need to be. And it's the same thing with you guys. It's like a lot of us, we look for people to complete us. We look for people to heal our broken heart. And that's another thing too. Like a lot of us, we go back to a situation. We try to give we'll give our heart back to the hands that broke it, expecting them to repair it. Right. And that's what I mean on that first one, where you got to stand in the pain. You got to remove yourself from the pain, whatever it may be, because you're not. It's just facts. Just think about it. It's anything in life. If I stand in fire, and I say this fire burns, and I don't want to be burned, but I stay in fire, I'm gonna keep burning. It's just facts, right? So I have to move out the fire, even though the fire might keep me warm at times, right? The fire might serve a great purpose in my life at times, but for 99%, it's causing me pain. Then forget that 1% of whatever good it's bringing. That 1% is not worth the 99% of pain that it's causing in my life. And a lot of us, we stay in situations because it's comfortable. We would rather stay in a comfortable pain than go seek an unfamiliar peace. And that's just facts. And that's just the human, I don't want to say psyche, but just a human nature. We're so afraid to be uncomfortable. That's why I teach myself to be uncomfortable every day. Whether it be working out, whether it be going to try something new, something that I fear. I love living outside my comfort zone, because if you teach yourself to be comfortable all the time, you will be afraid to step out on faith. You will be afraid to step away from things that aren't serving you or growing you, because you're so afraid of the unknown, right? You're so afraid of it. But like I said, moving on hurts. It involves a little bit of pain, but I would rather experience a temporary pain than stay in a fat, permanent pain with my life. And that's just me. That's just my thought process. So I'm like, okay, I'll go through this. I'll go through this temporary pain. I'll go through this temporary loneliness. I'll go through this temporary, confusion. I'll go through this temporary whatever, because I know in going through this, I'm gonna build myself up. I'm gonna find myself. know my worth. I'm going to learn these things as I move my life forward. And it might take some time. It might take a year. It might take 2 years. It might take 3. It might take 5 years, but it's worth it than staying in a known pain for the rest of my life that's going to destroy my life. That's destructive for my life. And that's how I think. That's not how everybody thinks. And like I said, this isn't a message to tell you that things can't be fixed. Things can't be worked out. People can't change. People can change. People do change. Relationships will go through hard moments, and they will learn from those hard moments. And those hard moments will build a great relationship. It will build a stable relationship. But a lot of us, we're trying to build a stable relationship with an unstable person or unstable people, because sometimes it's both people. We're trying to fight for a relationship that the person isn't fighting for you. Like, you're trying to fight for a person isn't fighting for you. You're throwing punches for a person that will never throw one for you or take one for you. And that's what I mean by that. Like, when it gets to that point, you got to find a way to heal, man. Like, straight up. And it's your life. And I just pray for everybody out there, man, that's going through it with their life. And just know healing is not an overnight process. It's an overtime process. I want to stress that. And don't put a timeline on your healing. Like, don't be like, okay, well, they seem healed. Like, I'm on they page and they living good. And of course, people show y'all the highlights on social media. You compare your life to that, right? They didn't moved on. They good. And so, like, why haven't I healed yet? And you put a timeline, like, oh, it's been a year. I should be healed by now. It's been, 2 weeks. I should be healed by now. And you don't realize that healing is a process. And sometimes you don't even know that you're healing. But if you're working on becoming better, if you're working on finding yourself again, if you're working on healing yourself again, if you're doing these things, you are healing, right? Even though if you can't feel it, because you might feel like you're not, but the fact is that you are. You might not be healed yet, but just because you're not healed doesn't mean you're not healing. And that's something that I told my mom in her battle of cancer, in her journey. This is not just for relationships, but in her journey. I had to tell her that and keep her focused on healing. Every single day is healing. Every single day I'm moving forward and I'm not accepting less. I'm not selling no more. I'm healing. And then you get to a point where you be like, dang, like that situation don't have that much power over me no more. That person, that whatever it was, my past, whatever that had so much power over me has now become powerless. Right? And they lose power over time. Think about it. There's people in your life, I can guarantee you, that you thought that you could never live without. I'm sure. And then 30, 20 years later, 15 years, 10 years later, you don't even think about that person no more. Why? Because you moved on with your life. Right? They might cross your mind every now and then, but they're no longer controlling your life. But as long as you're staying in their control in the environment of sickness, an environment of pain, an environment of hurt, where that environment can control you, right? They will always have the power over your life. Always. Right? But you have to move on, because when you disconnect, as long as there's connection, there's power, right? That's a positive and a negative. But in this case, it's a negative connection. As long as you're connected, there's power, right? They have the power to control you by their words. They have the power to control you by their actions, etc. But when you disconnect, when you say, okay, I'm disconnecting from this person, I'm disconnected from this situation, whatever that means to you. Maybe it's blocking somebody. Maybe it's, I don't know, whatever that means to you. I'm disconnecting. Now, when you disconnect, it's hard for power, right, to get to you, because there's no connection there. There's no connection there. Especially in the physical, there's no connection, because it starts with the physical. Because if you're connected physically, right, in the physical, emotional, you're going to stay connected, right? So in the physical, you have to disconnect, and eventually over time, emotionally, you'll start to disconnect. But as long as you stay connected in the physical, whatever that means, right? As long as you stay connected in the physical, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. I don't care how strong you are. It's a wrap. So I hope that helped y'all tonight. I just got on here wanting to talk to you guys about it. Let's get it.